According to Ukrainian officials, its armed forces have liberated 5 more settlements in Beryslav district of Kherson after regaining almost full control of the northeastern region of Kharkiv. Ukrainian forces recently claimed more gains on the eastern and southern fronts. Kherson is one of the 4 regions in Ukraine that Moscow recently claimed to have annexed. On Monday, Russia launched a series of missile attacks on Kiev and other Ukrainian cities, killing at least 19 people. Russia said it was a response to the blasts on the bridge which links Russia and Crimea. Russia's Federal Security Service claims it has detained 5 Russians and 3 citizens of Ukraine and Armenia over that explosion. The FSB says the blast was organised by the Ukrainian military intelligence and its director Kyrylo Budanov. A senior Ukrainian official has dismissed Moscow's investigation as nonsense. Meanwhile, Ukraine's energy minister says Russian missiles hit about 30% of Ukraine's energy infrastructure. At the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, a recently restored power line has been cut again. President Volodymyr Zelensky continues to look towards the West for more help. Ukraine has received the first of 4 Iris-T SLM air defence systems that Germany promised to supply. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg on Wednesday welcomed decisions by NATO allies to provide air defence systems to Ukraine.
Sirens blared and Kiev residents took cover underground from Russian missiles for a second day, in Moscow's biggest aerial offensive since the start of its invasion on February 24th. Russian missiles again hit Ukrainian cities Tuesday, but with less intensity than Monday, when dozens of strikes killed at least 19 people, wounded more than 100, and knocked out power supplies across the country. Strikes, the United Nations said, may amount to war crimes. In a virtual meeting Tuesday, G7 leaders from the United States, Germany, France, Japan, Britain, Italy, and Canada vowed to support Kiev for as long as it takes. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the group for more powerful weapons and faster deliveries.
The first point is defense support, air shield for Ukraine. This is a part of the security guarantees that are an element of our peace formula. When Ukraine receives a sufficient quantity of modern and effective air defense systems, the key element of Russia's terror, rocket strikes, will cease to work.
Ukraine on Tuesday received the first of 4 Iris-T air defense systems Germany promised to supply, a German defense ministry source said. The White House later said the United States was speeding up the shipment of sophisticated NASAMS air defense systems to Ukraine. The new weapons come as Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is facing increasing pressure at home to ramp up the war, vowed revenge after a massive explosion last weekend damaged a critical bridge connecting Russia to annexed Crimea. NATO said Tuesday it was closely monitoring Russia's nuclear forces following a string of Russian battlefield defeats, and that the allies were also boosting security around key infrastructure after recent attacks on Baltic Sea gas pipelines. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg.
Ukraine has the momentum and continues to make significant gains, while Russia is increasingly resorting to horrific and indiscriminate attacks on civilians and critical infrastructure.
Ukraine has accused Russian troops of committing atrocities in occupied territories, a charge Moscow denies. Moscow, which calls its actions in Ukraine a special military operation, has accused the West of prolonging the conflict by supporting Kiev.
Well, we can talk now to Ruslan Bortnik, who is a political analyst and director of the Ukrainian Institute of Politics, who is joining me now live from Kiev. And those discussions being had among NATO leaders about further support for Ukraine, particularly when it comes to air defense systems, is Kiev hearing what it wants to hear?
Hello, friends. Of course, it's very important for Ukraine nowadays to obtain these anti-missiles system, but we also are preparing to the winter war nowadays in Ukraine, and I think it's even more important to obtain all needable equipment for this winter war. Of course, it looks like Russia is trying to make a new step in this war and to start a big air war.
And so is Kiev hearing what it wants to hear from those leaders in Brussels? Is there a sense in Ukraine that it's going to see a response to the renewed calls for more air defense equipment? And is Kiev going to get what it's asking for? What is the sense coming out of that NATO meeting that's getting underway in Brussels? Does Ukraine feel optimistic about receiving the support that it's asking for when it comes to air defense equipment?
I don't know what is about Ukrainian president feeling, but I am sure Ukraine feels very confident now, because we are sure that Russian air war will not make defeat of Ukraine. Of course, it's very dramatic and very exhausting for Ukraine, but it's not enough to break Ukraine. And we feel very confident, and we want more weapons from our Western partners, especially the anti-missile, anti-rocket systems.
Well, we've also seen the Russians targeting energy infrastructure. How much do people in Ukraine fear the looming winter with only sporadic energy supplies?
The Ukrainian government appealed to the population, to the ordinary people, with a request to save electricity and not turn on washing machines, microwave ovens, heaters, and so on. Most regions of Ukraine nowadays have introduced a power outage schedule for the population. The work of large economic enterprises like metallurgical plants, coal mines, chemical enterprises has been stopped in Ukraine. Street lighting has been turned off also in many settlements, and so on. Many cafes and restaurants are closed even. There are restrictions for the operation of electric transport nowadays in Ukraine, in Kyiv, when I am situated now. And at the same time, the integrity of the energy system of Ukraine has not been destroyed, and it continues to function, and in Ukraine it is still warm enough to avoid the humanitarian crisis.
Okay, Ruslan, thank you. That's Ruslan Bortnik. Thanks for staying on the line after some difficulties with our connectivity. Political analyst and director of the Ukrainian Institute of Politics.